Here we go. Welcome everyone to the Purple Goat podcast. Today, Josie and I are going to have a chat about what it's like to work in Strat and basically sell our Purple Goat dream to our clients and the changing ways that we've seen that develop in the last couple of years since Purple Goat started in April 2020. So I suppose to start, Josie, would you just kind of give a bit of an insight into when you joined the company and how we framed things at Purple Goat to our clients, and then a little kind of summary of how you've seen that change over time to where we are now.
Yeah. I started in December 2021, but I think back then we were selling far less in terms of our offering. So it was very much focused on that kind of representation piece, very much influencers. And we absolutely still do that. But I think we've kind of come to learn that we have to make companies feel comfortable around that whole aspect of disability. And that includes insights, that includes research, that includes building confidence internally. And I think that has massively changed over the last few years. So now we're looking at companies who are running surveys, roundtables, giving people much more insight into how disabled consumers think about their product, as well as training with their internal teams to make their internal teams feel much more confident when they're talking to a disabled audience, engaging with that audience and wanting to be more inclusive and more representative in their general marketing and communications.
I know that probably when we started, a lot of what we were doing was very much a campaign with a set of deliverables and looking to achieve a certain goal for a brand. And I suppose when we think back on it now, that was absolutely great in terms of representation and progressive narratives, but sometimes it could feel maybe like we're trying to do that one thing, they've done that nice thing, and they can move on. Mm-hmm. And actually, I think that what we've seen now is that more companies are actually going, you know what, to do this authentically, we need to actually, sort of think about what we're doing behind the scenes and below the surface and actually make sure that we're doing those things right, dotting the I's, crossing the T's, and then sort of building on top of that with the above the line activations. And I think from our side, almost certainly that's a really nice way of ensuring that authenticity at every turn in what we do. So I think, although it's definitely made our proposals longer sometimes, it's nice to kind of do that phased approach, isn't it?
I think also it helps them kind of understand it, because we can sit here and we can preach all day about the business opportunity, about the purple pound, but until they have that insight and they listen to it themselves from the community and what they actually think about their products, they don't have that insight. So having that insight is just so valuable, especially when it goes into their marketing communication. When it comes to our influencer activations, it feeds into nearly every part of that business.
If you think about your favourite part of our job, what would you say that is?
I think it's kind of thinking of something different for each client and making sure because it's so interesting, you have so many different clients and how they feel about engaging with disability is so different. So it's kind of seeing our clients feel more confident, which is quite enjoyable to see. And also in terms of what we're offering them, it's really interesting to see how those particular offerings are helping them feel more confident in what they're doing.
Yeah, I know personally that firstly, us going and seeing clients in person, you really get a sense of that, don't you? And I know if I was going to say my favourite thing, it probably is that sat in a room talking about what, becoming more inclusive, and then slowly you can see things kind of dropping and they go, oh my word, I hadn't even ever thought of this before. But also in that same breath, we're presenting the solution to it. And so we're having this conversation where we're taking them from what they thought we were going to be talking about to actually it being a much more holistic conversation, and they're like really energized by what we're doing. And that for me, that's an educational moment. That's a really like empowering moment. And also you get those clients that that they genuinely from that moment on are gonna act and think differently. And that is definitely, if you could bottle that up and kind of give it to every client and interaction, you definitely would, wouldn't you?
I think that's something that we've seen massively change. We've just seen that kind of almost click moment, like light bulb moment, where people have just got it and they've understood it, and that's been kind of really cool to see. And I think that's just come from us kind of expanding what we're doing.
Yeah. In terms of when you're sort of pitching to clients, do you think that you get a really good feel for whether it's gone well or whether they get it, or if we've pitched it right? Like what are those kind of murmurings that you can get from a client as to how it's gone?
I mean, sometimes people got a real poker face. They don't let it on whatsoever. But generally, we try our best not to totally scare the living shit out of them. I don't. Am I okay to swear, Carmen? But we try our best not to scare them. And most of the time, I like to think that we don't. But I mean, you can kind of get the feeling. I mean, usually we have like warm-up conversations before a pitch, so you can kind of get a feel of where they are on their kind of inclusivity journey, if you like. But you can generally get a feel for how worried they are during the pitch. We wouldn't pitch anything that's, going to blow their minds off, but unless we can.
I suppose it's about hand-holding them through that journey of becoming more inclusive, becoming more representative. And obviously we understand that A, isn't something that happens overnight, but B, isn't something maybe they've done before. So our value and what we have to communicate in our decks is very much that, don't worry, you're here with us and we'll hold your hand through that whole process. And also, like, telling them that it's okay to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
I think that's something that a lot of companies really struggle with at first. But if we're able to, let them be a bit more vulnerable, then that comes across as much more authentic to the disabled community when they're talking about, what they're doing when it comes to disability and where their aspiration is in terms of where they want to go.
People are so scared of like getting it wrong. I think that can be like a massive barrier for clients. But like as soon as they kind of understand that no one's going to get it like 100% right, bang on first try. So kind of we're here to kind of help them each step into kind of, whether it's like a phased approach or whatever, to kind of help them be more inclusive. It's not going to happen overnight.
What's been the best reaction to something you've pitched so far in your PG career?
Ooh. I mean, we did this massive pitch deck. I mean, a really long, really massive, hours-long pitch deck. We had like an hour to present it, and we were literally skimming through it. But it took so much like blood, sweat, and tears going into that pitch. Yeah. But I just remember, like, by the end of the pitch, they were just like, this is amazing. Yeah, and I feel like that was a really good feeling.
Yeah, we got a round of applause and the swearing.
Yeah.
Which was great. That I suppose if you could get a client to swear at you and clap you after every pitch, you'd be on to a winner.
You do kind of wish you got a round of applause.
Yeah. And when you don't, you're like, okay. I suppose my favourite reaction is when someone tells us that what we've done is better than their existing agency that they've worked with. And there's a twofold reason to that. One, as a sort of disability-led organisation, I think that there's just an expectation, there's a stereotype that, well, you're going to get the disability stuff, but actually what we deliver as marketeers might not be on par with what they're used to. And I think that when we deliver a proposal, but then also when we end up delivering the campaign and we do a post-campaign analysis, when we see clients that go, oh my word guys, like this is amazing, this is far better than we've ever seen, this is better deck, this is a better creative, this is better results, that for me is awesome, because it shows that actually we are not just good for disabled people or good for a disability-led organisation, we're just best-in-class marketeers and social first agency. So we're constantly honing and developing that side of what we do. We always want to make sure we're iterating our practices to make sure that we're staying current, we're delivering our clients, exceptional work, but ultimately being recognised for that, aside from anything disability related, I think for me is the one that actually is great because it shows that you're changing their perception of disability and what that means. And I suppose, what are the things from our side that we have to watch out for? And with that, I suppose I mean, what things have we tweaked over time about our process? Would you say that means that we're better delivering what our clients are looking for, and we're really kind of creating a seamless process from start into campaigns that will eventually go live? Is there stuff that we're doing differently, in the last 12 months or 2 years, that you've noticed that gives a better experience for our clients?
I think the in-person meetings definitely help. I think having disability in the room is very different to having it on screen, on virtually, because you could have a call with someone and it's so easy just to click off and be like, yeah, we're going to be inclusive, okay, bye, and then that be the end of conversation. But it's so much more difficult when you have it in person. You're actually there talking in the person. You kind of have to engage, and people are just more engaged in that conversation. And I think not only just for them, but for us, we get such more deeper insight into how they work, that I think it just helps us perform better in terms of that proposal and show we're getting it right, and just makes that whole thing a bit more streamlined, if you like.
Yeah, it's so nice to actually see people IRL and get a feel for them, get a feel for not just who they are as a company, but who they are as individuals. And I think that we're able to tailor our proposals and our activations and ideas much more as we know who we're dealing with, and making it much more of a human experience. So, if we think about what our favourite clients do right, for me, that's them trusting us to offer their insight and lived experience as disabled people and apply that to what they're asking us to do. And in that, I suppose I mean that they're flexible to work in a way that gets the best out of the campaign, the creators we're working with, what we're trying to achieve. And sometimes they might not have all the understanding of why something should be in a certain way, or a brief should be crafted in a certain way. And we can explain that to the client, and they absolutely, get it and go, cool, you guys, you understand how to get the best out of this. And of course, that's an element of trust that they have to give us, but we know that creates the best results. And I suppose for me, that when we have clients that do that, and it's a real two-way dialogue, obviously we're always going to try and work in a way that absolutely suits our clients, but similarly, having a really strong amount of input on it, we know, gets the best out of what we're trying to achieve.
Yeah. I think also, when on top of kind of building it, I mean, it's again trust, but when you are able to have that kind of more creative freedom, and I mean, I suppose it works with the influencers as well. If you give creators creative freedom, they're going to be able to create much stronger content for their platform. But at the same time, you trust us and are more willing to kind of push the boat out there in terms of what they're willing to try. I think that's pretty cool as well.
On the flip side of that, I suppose the moments where we have to roll our sleeves up is when a client, is resistant to actually listening to what we have to say. Sometimes we'll be brought in and try and make a campaign more inclusive, or bring, really strong representation of disability. And let's say we're critiquing the creative, and I often find it quite amusing when we sort of do critique the creative, and actually you can see the faces of some of the people that you're kind of pitching your thoughts to, that actually that's gone down very badly, and they're taking it personally that we're kind of making suggestions around tweaks. I suppose the easiest example of that is a creative we saw that had the word inspiration in it. and talking about the disabled community is inspirational. And of course there's moments and times when of course you could do that, but as a broad point it's a flag to try and just not end up down the inspiration porn narrative. And I remember we flagged that and we got this kind of sour looking face on the other side of the virtual meeting, and it's the creative director that absolutely didn't want us to jostle with his idea, even though we knew that fundamentally that had to change to create the best out of the content. Is there anything else from your side that you've seen from the client that absolutely, if you see it, it's a flag about there not being the right approach?
I mean, we do still, like, every now and then get those clients, they're like, yeah, absolutely love it, it's great, fantastic, amazing, you're all great, but then have no intention of doing anything. And it's almost like they're kind of like, you guys are really great, but no, we're not going to give you any budget. And I think that's kind of like, it's kind of, those ones are hard ones, are tough ones to feel out, but you can kind of tell.
Yeah, it often feels like you're getting a pat on the head,
Yeah.
and they've had a nice, positive meeting that's fulfilled their D&I quota for the day or the week or the month. But are they actually going to be able to put the wheels in motion to change anything, or do they want to do that? Sometimes, yeah, we can get that feel as to
We've just made them feel good.
made them feel good, but sometimes
Yeah.
make someone feel good.
Yeah.
At least we can offer that. Josie, what would you say makes a campaign great?
I mean, personally, I think when we're writing a proposal and you've got a great creative, the creative will just write itself. And like that, you just knowing it clicks. Like when you've got the kind of the brand values, the kind of messaging, that all kind of clicks into one. I think you just kind of know when it's like the right one. You've got the right creators as well. So when you've got like the right face, the right brand, and like the right campaign, if you like.
It's really nice when we have to work with a product or service that we know just really naturally is inclusive as well. And often I find that the brands themselves might not even know it, and actually it's something that the disabled community has really adopted. One thing being, just as some examples, smart speakers is one, and we've done campaigns in and around that, which is great because then you don't have to have this blue flashing light talking about disability above someone's head. They're just naturally going to mention that it's a great accessibility feature. Similarly, we're now all using mobile phones all day, every day. They're basically connected to our person, and the disabled community use that to do so many things in their life. And so something like banking now through a mobile app has changed banking for disabled people. No longer do they have to go to a high street bank to do things. Everything can be done through the app itself, which is naturally very, very accessible and inclusive. And often brands are quite reluctant to talk about the great stuff that their product services naturally have as inclusive features because they don't want to be self-serving. But unless they talk about that stuff, we often don't see the community know about it, but also the wider industry know about it to actually make other people think about that and go, okay, what can we do differently as well? Some final quick tips.
Slide into the DMs.
Quick tips of how to be more inclusive. Slide into the DMs
Yeah.
of us.
Yeah, that's my advice.
info@purplegoatagency.com. No, also, I suppose, just to kind of summarise what we've talked about, be vulnerable, be open to a two-way dialogue. I would say that be prepared to iterate and develop things over time. Don't try and do something as a flash in the pan, but actually think about what that can deliver you as a company over time and as one aspect of what you could do more holistically.
And I think also having the structures in place to kind of continually listen to the community. It's not just like a one-stop job. You continue to listen to them and you can continue to iterate that with the community.
And also be comfortable to change your preconceptions based on that insight. I think that we've had moments where we've run insights and there's an assumption from the brand or maybe even ourselves around what we'll find out, and the community thinks something completely different. And that's also one of my favourite things, because it just shows that as a society we have these stereotypes and preconceptions about disability, but actually unless you ask the community themselves, and unless you represent that community themselves, you're not actually going to find out the answer, and you're not going to engage them authentically. So yeah, that's definitely one too. Also, thanks to Outset Studio for having us today. We're very lucky to be working with Outset, who is our very accessible, inclusive studio, and they have a lovely purple background as well, which we're enjoying. But the team at Outset have been fantastic, and hopefully you like us looking in our 4K glory. So check out Outset Studio, which we can put a link. Oh no, we can't put a link there now. Put a link here or there or somewhere. Is that probably it from our side for today? So thanks so much for joining us today, and there'll be plenty more Purple Goat podcasts soon. Keep your eyes and ears peeled.